Well, your number one rival is always your teammate, of course, and having spent 7 years as teammate to Mika Häkkinen, who went on to win a couple of World Championships, then there's no question he was my biggest challenge. Ayrton was an incredible individual, and I was lucky enough to be the test driver for Nigel Mansell, for Alain Prost, and then at the end of his journey, Ayrton. The thing that Ayrton really emphasised, on top of what I saw from Nigel and Alain, was how he immersed himself in working with the engineers and the mechanics. He didn't just turn up, drive the car, make a few comments and then leave. He was there at the track early, and he was there at the track until very late, because he wanted to get inside the minds of the engineers. He wanted them to be thinking like him. And that attention to detail, that work ethic, is the thing that I would really impress on anyone out there. I think a lot of people imagine highly talented, highly successful people just have a natural talent and they deliver results. But they're incredibly driven and hardworking. And that's the ingredient which I think is the most impressive. Taking that opportunity, taking that natural talent and applying hard work is the thing that is a common thread amongst successful people. I think every racing driver would say there's no such thing as the perfect lap, because there's always an area that you could improve a little bit. But if you have pole position, then clearly what you've done is taken more out of that lap than your teammate and also the rest of your competitors. So to have been on pole in Monte Carlo in 2001 is something I'm very proud of, because I wasn't particularly a strong qualifier. I think that my racing was always better, but to have had the opportunity to work my way through the weekend. You know, I won Monaco in 2000, to take pole position in 2001, and then to win again in 2002. For me, it's a period I look back on, of that 3-year period where I think I was at my strongest as a driver. I don't really have a daily in such, because I've been on a world tour for 25 years. From March until November, I'm on an aircraft going to a Grand Prix circuit. You know, I have an old classic Mercedes built in '71, which is the same age as me, and there's days when I really like to drive that car. Sometimes I want to unleash some performance from my AMG car. But a lot of the time in Monte Carlo, because it's a small place, I ride my Brompton fold-up bicycle. So I wouldn't say, despite my career being in cars, that I'm a car person. You know, I need cars that are functional for what I need on that day. I'd rather finish second knowing that was the best I could do than win because it was a weak season of Formula One. With the greatest respect to Keke Rosberg, he won one race the year he won the World Championship. You know, there were seasons I won one race. I wouldn't feel good about being a world champion having won one race. I'm not taking anything away from Keke, I'm just saying there's world champions and there's world champions, and therefore I think I'm comfortable having finished second in the championship to Schumacher. The lucky underpants weren't so lucky, because I was wearing them when I broke my leg in Spa. When they cut the suit off me, my lucky underpants, which I'd had for several years, had a few holes in them. So my mother was very embarrassed to see I was wearing holy underwear. Holy in the sense of they had holes rather than they'd been blessed by the Pope or something like that. So they were retired after that, but they were just comfortable. And I had a 3-pack of these comfortable lucky underpants, which I wore all the way to the point before I was in Formula One. Well, it'll always be an open debate, won't it? We'll never get to see Senna and Schumacher compete with each other, but I would come down on the side of Senna, because I think that he had different challenges than maybe Michael's era. You know, he started before that, but he did an amazing job, and he was able to, you know, rewrite in many ways what commitment was in motor racing. Well, I have this theory, and it may be based on the fact that I was teammates to Mika, that Mika had more absolute speed than Michael, but I think Michael was able to deliver that speed that he had more consistently. So I think if I had Michael and Mika in the same team, I think Mika would get more pole positions, but possibly Michael could win more races. I would love to have all of them in the room together and then watch their egos all bounce off each other. Maybe I'm more respectful of their success than they are individually of each other. Yeah, EJ is an amazing character, incredibly successful in his business, but very annoying to spend a lot of time with when you're doing any live production. He's only little, and he's deaf. So when you ask him a question, he's always going, "What?" The last book I read was my own most recent book, which is The Winning Formula, which is not really about motor racing per se, but it's about the things I've learned from people like Frank Williams, Ron Dennis, Dietrich Mateschitz, Adrian, Mika, successful people, high achievers, and how I think the lessons that I've learned from them and I've learned through the journey of Formula One would have helped me when I was 17 or 18 years old. I'm excited to see my very proud moment of seeing my name on the side of a Cooper tyre. It's got my logo that I used to run on the side of my helmet. It's got a little bit of tartan embossed into the actual carcass of the tyre. So not only is it a world first to have my name on a tyre, but more importantly, the first time that tartan has been embossed onto the side of a road-going tyre. So that isn't available exclusively to Scottish people, as a Scot, to be able to have my name and a little bit of the design on the side of a Cooper tyre is a proud moment. At the time, Ron Dennis thought it was my mistake, but actually it was a software issue. And normally my procedure was to pull the right clutch paddle and select first gear, but for whatever reason on that day I pulled the left clutch paddle and selected first gear, and there was a new software in the car, and it hadn't, for whatever reason, managed to allow that to be a procedure, and it switched off the engine. So incredibly frustrating to put all the work in on Thursday, on Saturday, and then have to start at the back of the Grand Prix. I finished 5th in the race, having spent a lot of time behind in Ricky Bernoldi in the Arrows. Still, not a bad result in Monaco, but pole position is something that normally you should be able to convert to a victory. I think the race I'm most proud of in terms of my fighting spirit was Magny-Cours 2000. It was the race I had to come back through, overtake Rubens, overtake Michael to win the race. It was also the race that I gave Michael the finger, which I'm obviously not proud of. It's not big, it's not clever, but I think it showed the sort of deep-rooted passion I had and desire to win that Grand Prix. Well, I'd finished teammates for 9 years of my career, 7 with Mika, 2 with Kimi. Certainly Mika was a lot more friendly and a lot more easy to communicate with than Kimi. Kimi was quite young at that time and didn't say a lot. Now he's just old and doesn't say a lot. So I enjoyed my time alongside Mika more, but they were both very quick, so they were both difficult to beat. It was strangely satisfying shooting him in the testicular area, even though he had a codpiece on to protect him. I'm sure a lot of people would love to have hit him with something a bit more powerful. I am briefs in the racing car and I'm boxers the rest of the time. I like to keep everything in place when I'm in a racing car, and when I'm not, I like something a bit more loose-fitting. Both Ron and Frank were very strong personalities, high achievers, and both could be very intimidating at times, but that's part of being a leader. That's part of that era of Formula One, and they put their whole careers into Formula One. They put their whole lives on the line. I think the reason why I worked with Frank Williams for 4 or 5 years, from test driver to race driver, and then 9 years at McLaren, was not because I was the fastest driver, but because I had commitment and I was prepared to stand by my belief if I really believed that a direction was the right direction, and they obviously respected that, otherwise they would have fired me. The easy money in who's going to be the world champion in 2019 would be Lewis Hamilton, because he's won the last few, but I think that Ferrari really have a chance. I think that we'll see Charles Leclerc win Grand Prix this year at Ferrari. Vettel should be the more experienced driver, but never say never. So I think we're going to see a great battle at the front between Ferrari, Mercedes. Red Bull are obviously still going through the development phase with Honda, but they're pretty confident that we'll see them have a more competitive package, and it looks generally like a much tighter season. So looking forward to it.